public defender is an attorney employed by the community and responsible for giving legal aid without cost to any person who seeks it and is financially unable to employ private counsel. It is his duty to defend those accused of crime until the issue is decided in a court of law. The first public defender's office in the United States was opened in January 1913. Over the years, other offices were opened. And today, that handful has grown to a network of lawyers cooperating to protect the rights of our clients. In many cases, we do more than defend a man legally. Sometimes he needs a special kind of help, as in the case of Fred Daniels.
The cold drink.
In machine.
Later, Fred was driving down Laurel Avenue as if he had just been through some shocking experience. Then it happened.
What's your name, fella?
Daniels. Fred Daniels.
Let's see your driver's license. Where were you heading when you crashed?
Why, I guess I was on my way home.
You guess? Don't you know?
It's all kind of hazy.
Where were you around 8:30? Well, I suppose that's kind of hazy, too.
8:30.
Well?
I'm trying to remember.
Well, it shouldn't be too hard. Come on, Daniels, cut the stalling.
I'm not stalling. I just can't remember.
I don't suppose you remember sticking up that little store, either. But the owner gave a pretty good description of you and your car. You better come along with us.
It's a rule of the sheriff's office that no one is allowed to communicate with a prisoner until he has been arraigned. Fred's wife was upset and was pleading with me, but there was nothing I could do.
But this man is my husband. Couldn't I talk to him for just a minute to tell him that I know there's been some horrible mistake?
I know how you must feel, Mrs. Daniels. As soon as your husband is arraigned, you'll have a chance to see him and talk things over.
Fred robbing the store doesn't make sense. I won't believe it. Fred never did a dishonest thing in his life. Why won't they let me talk to him?
People versus Daniels. Have you an attorney?
No, Your Honor.
Have you the money to employ one?
No, sir.
Public defender appointed.
I don't want an attorney. And I don't want a trial. Just leave me alone.
Remember, I love you, darling. I love you, and I believe in you. In a couple of days, this will all be over. Don't worry.
As soon as possible, I met Fred in the interview room. It was my first chance to talk with him. We don't have very much time, Fred, so tell me the truth. What happened?
You gotta believe me, Mr. Matthews. I just can't remember.
You mean you can't or don't want to remember?
Well, of course I want to. All I remember is I left the house. It was after dinner. I'd had an argument with Alice about the bills. What happened after that is complete blank.
You don't remember where you were around 8:30?
Nothing. Till around, it was 10 o'clock. I was driving down Laurel Avenue and my car crashed.
Do you remember the police picking you up?
How could I forget it? Being dragged off to jail like a criminal. Detectives fingerprinting me and grilling me, and some man named Quimby telling the police, yeah, that's the guy, all right. And then I was booked for robbery, for entering his store and cleaning out the cash register.
You denied it?
Well, of course I denied it. I'm not a thief, Mr. Matthews. I never touched a nickel that didn't belong to me. As for this fella Quimby, I never saw him before.
But he positively identified you, which is serious. Unless you can tell us where you were and what you were doing at that time.
Well, that's going to be tough. Yeah, everything's tough from the day you're born. But I had a way out, Mr. Matthews. It could have been all over this morning if you hadn't stopped me.
Maybe a way out for you, Fred. But what about your wife?
Well, isn't Alice worse off this way? I'm not much of a husband, Mr. Matthews. All I ever brought her was trouble and disgrace. Now she'll probably see me sent to prison.
It's my job to try and keep that from happening.
That same afternoon, I talked over Fred's case with Dr. Potter, a friend of mine and psychiatrist at the mental hospital at Ferndale.
Before I venture any opinion, Bart, I'd want to study this fellow firsthand.
I wish you would, Frank.
I wish you hadn't told me about him. I'm on vacation. Left Ferndale to get a week's rest.
Oh, it won't take too long, and if we could just help this fellow.
All right, you're breaking my arm. I'll put him under observation.
Thanks. And I've got some work to do, too. I can't give you the answer, Mrs. Daniels. Maybe Dr. Potter can supply it after he's observed him.
Fred isn't really sick. Unless the war did something. He was in a plane crack-up, then a year in prison camp. Those are things you don't get over right away. When he's restless and nervous, that's probably the reason.
What sort of work does he do?
When he came home, he couldn't seem to hold a job. He said he didn't belong in an office. His talent was for writing.
Ever have anything published?
Just a jingle or two in an army newspaper. During the war. About all. But when he insisted he wanted to make writing his career, I didn't want to stand in his way. Meanwhile, our debts were terrible. I was worried, and we argued a lot. Like on Thursday night, Fred was in the living room, working hard on his book.
Well, there it is. 6 months of hard labor. The story still isn't right. Have to start all over again from page 1.
Maybe it'd be better, Fred, if you went back to work.
Well, isn't writing work?
If you feel you must write, you could do it at night.
When I'm all tired and beat.
Do we have to go all over this again? Only yesterday you promised you'd look for a job. What happened with that interview with Mr. Blackwell?
Mr. Blackwell?
Yes, he made an appointment with you to meet him at his office. When you left here after lunch yesterday, I thought that's where you're going.
I don't remember any appointment with a Mr. Blackwell.
You don't? What are you talking about?
No, I don't. Now, why don't you let me keep my mind on my book?
Fred.
What is it?
We've got to do something about the bills. They keep piling up and we've used up all our savings. If you won't look for a job, I'm going to.
No, I won't let you.
But we haven't a penny in the world. We can't go on this way. Don't you understand? We don't have any money left.
All right, Alice, why don't you say it?
Say what?
That I'm a drain on you. No good. Nothing but 6 feet of trouble.
You'd never hear me say that, Fred.
Oh, but you think it, don't you? And I don't want to hear any more about the bills. I'll get the money to pay for them. You leave it to me, and I'll get it tonight.
What do you suppose he meant when he said he'd get that money?
I'm sure it was just talk. He often acts that way, makes rash promises.
You've been very frank, Mrs. Daniels. Thank you. You've helped me to understand your husband a lot better. There's more to this case than meets the eye, Frank. I can't see this Fred Daniels as the criminal type, can you?
I'll go along on that, Bart. He's definitely a mental problem.
Why doesn't his wife realize it? She's an intelligent woman.
Wife is always the last one to admit it, even to herself. If ever a man needed psychiatric treatment, it's Daniels.
I wish you'd tell that to Judge Fletcher.
I will. As soon as I can prepare a complete report.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. A few days later, Judge Fletcher called a private hearing. Present were Dr. Potter, Alice, Ed Fraser from the district attorney's office, and myself.
Dr. Potter? As Judge Fletcher will see in my report, our patient is the victim of fugue states, more commonly known as mental blackouts. Some of these spells last for hours at a time, during which he can remember nothing. He also suffers from a number of frustrations, which tend to aggravate an unbalanced mental condition.
Could you make that a little clearer, Doctor?
He's insecure. He shies away from responsibilities. And going blank is an easy way to shut out what you don't want to see or know or cope with.
Well, that's why he couldn't remember his appointment with Mr. Blackwell. And that Thursday night. If you could only help him, Dr. Potter.
It's quite possible, but it may take some time.
Then what would you recommend?
If Your Honor would consider committing the patient to the mental hospital, I'd like to make him my personal responsibility.
I don't want Fred committed to a mental institution. No!
Please, Mrs. Daniels, don't let the official name frighten you. The hospital's a remarkable place. I've seen wonders performed there. And with Dr. Potter offering to take a personal interest, Fred will have the best of care.
I'm sorry. It was just the first shock of the thing. I should be very grateful. All that matters is to see Fred get well again.
Then I'll make a formal commitment. A copy will be sent to the district attorney's office and one to the public defender. The patient will be transferred to the mental hospital tomorrow, Doctor.
Fred was waiting for me in the attorney's room of the city jail. Alice had come with me to say goodbye.
Oh, encouraging news, Fred.
You're leaving here, Fred.
I'm leaving?
You're being released under Dr. Potter's personal care.
Oh, why do I need Dr. Potter? Nothing wrong with me.
No, dear, but Dr. Potter says it's your nerves.
Oh, that's silly. Or maybe I'm a little nervous. Who wouldn't be? Slapped into jail for no reason.
He wants to help you. You won't have to stay in jail.
Okay. Let Dr. Potter have his little fun, just so long as I'm home again and a free man.
Oh, it's not quite that simple, Fred. You've got to be where he can keep an eye on you for a while. He wants you out at Ferndale at the mental hospital.
Well, why do I have to go there?
Now, don't get excited, dear, please.
You mean you want me to go?
Alice simply wants you to get well. It's more than just nerves. But Dr. Potter is sure that he can cure you.
So I'm sick. Up here, is that what you're trying to tell me? Mental hospital. Why don't you use the right word? Insane asylum. And you let him sell you this bill of goods. If you really cared for me, you'd never have let this happen.
I do care for you, but Dr. Potter has assured me that...
I'm not being fooled, Alice. You want me put away.
That's not so, Fred.
Well, then why didn't you stick by me? Oh, no one's kidding me. I'm just trading a barred cell for a padded one.
It's a hospital, Fred, not an asylum. The finest of its kind in the whole country. You'll receive excellent care.
You save your breath. Both of you. I don't buy it. I'm not being sent to any mental institution. Why, if I had any sanity left, I'd lose it there. I'm staying right here in jail.
It's not my decision, Fred. It's a court order.
Take me back to my cell where I belong.
Mr. Matthews, I hope we're doing the right thing.
Within several weeks, I had a chance to visit Ferndale and get a first-hand report on Fred.
The hardest part of the job, Bart, was getting him here.
Then he's giving you no trouble.
I'd say he's becoming a model patient.
May I see him?
I'd rather he had no visitors for a while longer.
What about this book he was trying to write?
First thing I did was have his room fixed up like a writer's studio. Hemingway couldn't have asked for more. I assured him that no one would disturb him until he'd finished his book. He stood it for 1 week, then begged off.
Then his writing was an escape.
Exactly. But his bluff had been called. He realized if he was ever to get out of here, he'd have to start coping with reality.
You have hopes for complete recovery?
You can take bets on it, Bart. And I'm sure of one thing. Tests indicate he's not the criminal type. Say, how's the case coming along? How about that shopkeeper who identified him?
Oh, Quimby? Well, he could be wrong, and I'm going to try to find out. Thanks, Frank.
Good luck.
the public defender. You're the fellow that got Daniels in that mental hospital when he should be in jail.
Quite sure that you don't understand all these circumstances, Mr. Quimby. Otherwise, you'd understand.
All I know is he came in here, held me up at the point of a gun, took all my cash, and then beat it in his car.
Couldn't this be a case of mistaken identity?
See that? No sale. I got a good look at him twice. First, he came in here asking for a cold drink. That was maybe 8 o'clock. Half hour later, he came back. Hat down over his eyes, collar turned up, but it was the same guy. That's when he robbed me.
And you'll swear that it was Fred Daniels. You're that sure?
Sure, I'm sure. He belongs in jail, and I'm going to see that he gets there.
Are you scared?
About what?
About leaving here? And what you're going to do?
Oh, no, honey. That's what's so wonderful about it. I really feel for the first time like embracing the future and molding it. Well, I don't mean reshaping the whole world or anything like that, but I can sure go to work on our little corner of it.
Fred, when I hear you talk like this, it's like you never came back from the war till just now. Welcome home, darling.
Discharge papers are all in shape, just waiting for the board's okay.
Mr. Matthews, there's been such a wonderful change in him. All he talks about is going home.
Yes, it is wonderful, Mrs. Daniels, but...
But what?
Well, I'm sorry, but there's still the trial.
The trial? I don't understand.
Fred will have to be returned to jail to stand trial for the robbery.
Damn trial? Why didn't you tell me this before?
We thought it better to wait.
And to keep him believing this was the beginning of a wonderful new chapter in our lives, when there's nothing ahead of him except...
You have to realize that the truth might have retarded his recovery, Mrs. Daniels, even made it impossible.
Why must he be made to go through this torture for a crime he didn't do?
Let's not give up hope so fast, Mrs. Daniels.
Must you build up a man in mind and body just to be able to tear him down again? Fred could only remember where he was that awful night.
Perhaps we can help him remember. He's still my patient. It's my right to try any treatment I might want. So let's not give up yet. I'm giving you a shot of sodium pentothal, Fred. I'm hoping it'll give us the results that we want.
Well, that's okay with me, Doctor. Anything to get me out of this jam.
You understand what it does? It induces talk. Works on the subconscious, brings out things that your conscious mind might be resisting. So, just take it easy. Give it time to take effect. Think carefully. Think back. It's that Thursday night. You're at home with Alice.
I want to write. I got to start the book all over.
Yes, we know, and you're angry with Alice.
She's always worried about the bills. Got to pay the bills. Got to get the money.
That's right, Fred. You want to get some money, so you go out.
I'm in my car, driving downtown. Thirsty. Stop in a little store.
Where, Fred?
A little store on Laurel Avenue. I come back in my car. Driving down Lincoln Boulevard. Promised Alice I'd get the money.
How are you going to get it, Fred?
I'll get it. He'll help me. Lakewood Park Hotel.
You stopped at the Lakewood Park Hotel? Why? Who was it you wanted to see there?
Clerk said I gotta wait.
Wait for whom, Fred? Fred, please don't stop. Who was it you were waiting for?
Why won't he tell you?
I'm afraid this is where the block is. It Something he might be ashamed of or want us to hide. Not wise to keep forcing him.
At any rate, we have something to go on now.
Head all clear?
It's much better. From what you tell me, I must have done an awful lot of talking.
But not quite enough.
Who could it have been you wanted to see at the Lakewood Park Hotel?
I don't even remember being there, let alone who I wanted to see.
Well, let's try and find out. If Dr. Potter will let Alice and me borrow you for a couple of hours, the room clerk may have the answer.
Okay, Bart. Patient's yours.
Public Defender's Office. Have you ever seen this man before?
No, sir. I can't recall ever seeing this gentleman before.
It's so important. Try to remember, please. We've got to find out why he came here.
Look, ma'am, I talk to so many hundreds of people. One seems just like the other. If it's as important as you say, seems like this gentleman should be able to remember what he came here about.
I only wish I could.
Well, I'm sorry. You wish to register, sir?
Well, I guess that's that.
Bart! Bart Matthews, when's the last time I saw you?
Not since you quit the force. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Daniels, Joe Kilpatrick.
Pleased to meet you. How do you do?
You know, one guess and I can tell you what Joe's doing here. He's the house detective. It's as obvious as if he had a sign on him.
You can't fool Bart. Haven't I met you before, Mr. Daniels?
Oh, I don't think so.
If Joe said he's met you, he has. He never forgets a face.
It's my stock and trade.
Hey, wait a minute. Maybe you met Fred here. You might be able to help us, Joe. We're trying to check up on something.
Yeah, sure it was here about 6 weeks ago. You were asleep in the lobby and snoring loud enough to be arrested for disturbing the peace. Remember? I woke you up and asked what business you had here.
Do you remember what time it was?
Yeah, about 8. I just came on duty. You were waiting for someone, weren't you? And the clerk called and said you could see your friend now. It was someone on the 6th floor. Room 609. Always had a good memory for numbers.
I just can't seem to connect things up.
Who occupies 609?
609, that's Mr. Greenway.
Is he in?
I'll see, sir. Mr. Greenway's room, please.
Oh, if one friend can't help another, it'd be a crazy world.
Why didn't you let Alice know you were coming to see me?
Well, I guess I was ashamed of asking for help.
Oh, now that's nonsense.
No, thanks. Well, anyway, everything's turning out all right. All we need is your testimony, Mr. Greenway.
Well, sure, but there won't be much to it. Fred came up here and told me his troubles. He needed a little loan. After I gave it to him, we sat around until 9 shooting the old army breeze. Well, he was here all that time. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's all you have to say, right, Mr. Matthews?
To old times, Fred, when we flew out together, huh?
Now let's drink to new times, to the wonderful days ahead.
Fred Daniels was released, free to go home and start life fresh. His experience in jail and in the mental hospital would make material for a book. But Fred is holding down a good job and tells me that he has neither time nor talent for any writing. Oh, incidentally, a man arrested just last week confessed to a series of robberies. Quimby's store was one of them. The case you have just seen was brought to a fair and just conclusion through the efforts of a public defender.